Okay, you should be good to go now. You should have some instruments in there. You should be familiar with what a MIDI track looks like. You should know how to create a MIDI track by now. So now I think it's time to have a little fun with it. I'm gonna move the mic a little bit. Might do some thumping. There we go. So let me show you one way, the very easy way to record, to input MIDI data. I'm going to go ahead and delete those two tracks. Those were the ones I was using to show you the difference between audio and MIDI. And I'm going to create a new track, and we're going to use that super cool piano that we downloaded for free. And I'm going to go to track, new virtual instrument on new track, and I'm going to pick my Forefront Technologies Forefront piano. And it'll pull up a user interface, and sometimes these have all kinds of settings that you can set. You can do the takt delay, and obviously this is a free one, and it is what it is, but even some free ones have all kinds of parameters you can change, but we won't complain because we didn't pay for this. All right, so right now the instrument is loaded, but there's nothing to play. So one way that you could get some sound going, notice that the track is armed, by the way, and it needs to be that way, and I'll show you why. But let's now go on to View Virtual MIDI Keyboard. So the Virtual MIDI Keyboard, this allows us to just put in some, press some keys and trigger some sounds here. Now, of course, what the sound that we hear won't necessarily be a piano. It'll be whatever instrument we loaded. If it's a percussion instrument that we loaded here, then we'll hear percussion. But the keyboard is the classic instrument used to input MIDI data because, it's perfect. Lots of people play a keyboard. Everyone except me knows how to play piano. So, of course, this isn't going to be great, but hey, you don't always have a keyboard laying around. This will do the trick. So, just a few things about this little virtual keyboard. There's letters, as you can see, and so those are helpful if you want to use your keyboard to actually play the notes. It's a little easier to do than having to click. So the letters don't correspond to note names, it just corresponds to the layout. So I have Z is C, C3, and then X is D, and then C, and so on. There's a sharps above. So you can kind of imagine your keyboard as a little, your computer keyboard, I mean, as a, you can sort of visualize the keys in there. And you can play chords or whatever. If you want to work with a different range, with a different portion of the keyboard, obviously this is not going to be the full range. You can, let's say you want it to be higher, you just hover over a particular key and then you right click. And then what it'll do is it'll use the same keys, but the keys will now correspond to different notes that are higher. So this isn't a fixed layout. Just be aware of that. Just keep track of this, and if you wanted to go back to, so now it goes from C4 up to C7. If you wanted to go even higher, you can. So now, if I go even higher, see how, I don't know how high it'll go. Now it's quite high. So if I press Z, it's a really high C sharp. This is really confusing now. The sharp is the Z. Oh my God. Yeah, it's super confusing now. But anyways, this will do. So if I just did now as I went on to C6 and I just right clicked on that, I'm going to go back to middle C. Okay, so that'll be good. All right, so once again, you can hear sound now, but this is not recording anything. To get something in the actual track, you need to record some MIDI. So you actually have to perform something. That's one way to do it. And so if you're going to do that, make sure that your track is armed. Why does it have to be armed? Because that means that the keyboard is now controlling this instrument. If I have 3, 4, 5 MIDI tracks, I don't necessarily want them to all be synchronized to my key. If I have a full orchestra and I play C and they're all armed, they're all going to play at the same time, that C, which I may not want. And usually that's not what you want, but it might be, I don't know. So I'm just going to keep it armed, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this back to the beginning in case it isn't. And then I'm going to hit record, and then I'm going to start recording. And I'm going to keep the metronome going because I need it. And let's see what happens. Hold on. Let me try that again. For some strange reason, it'll do that sometimes. The first time you do it, it won't work. And then the second time it won't work either. Why is that? Let me try something else. Yeah, it's weird. It does get stuck sometimes. I don't know if it's just my computer that does that, but sometimes it won't work until you actually start clicking here, then switch off to the keyboard, which is bizarre. I don't know why. Anyway, so now let's see. See, it's back to being stuck now. I think it might be because I get it. I get why that is actually. I get it. It's because I should have it selected. Let's see if that's true. Ready? Oh yeah. About the lamest thing I could possibly think of. So, all right, got it. So I made a silly mistake that I obviously have made in the past and never even thought about why. I don't use this keyboard that much, but I'll solve it right now, and I'll tell you why I did. I'll review that just in case you make the same mistake. So I hit record, and by hitting record, I sort of deactivated temporarily the keyboard, right? And so if I started to press things, it wasn't working. So I had to actually press on the keyboard, click on it to make it to reactivate. It's almost like it's there, but that particular window isn't active. So, all right. So let's try that one more time. Let's delete all this. Bam. All right. So here we go. I'm gonna hit record. I'm gonna click on the keyboard. Make sure it turns nice and gray. Then I'll start recording. All right. Here we go. Alright, so not the most in tune piano, and not the best piano playing, but that's alright. Okay, it's definitely easier to use a real piano, especially if you can play piano, but using your keyboard is not bad, it'll work. Okay, so now I have this, and I can play it back. I'm laughing at my lame tune. All right. So yeah, that was the best thing I could think of playing. You believe it or not. Okay. So that's one way to do it. I'm going to stop this video, and then I'm going to switch over to an actual MIDI keyboard, and I'll show you how to get that going. Okay, here we go.